This is mathheals.com, where you can find more links to math and computer science YouTube videos. Let's take a look at importing texture 2Ds, working with some transparencies, and then kind of go from there. Okay, so let me come here. I'm going to do a file, new project, and this is a Visual C# XNA Game Studio, and I want to choose Windows Game 4.0 here. And I'll call this transparency movement. You should give it a name that's meaningful so you can go back later and find out exactly what it's referring to. Notice it's under my Documents, Visual Studio 2010 Projects. We'll come back to that. And I'll click OK. And it puts a lot of extra stuff here. You don't really need to worry about that too much. I'm going to go to Google and find some pictures. Type in mountain, and it's actually a pretty good one right there. So let me click images, and that one's not bad. I'm going to work with that one. So I'm going to right click on it. Of course, if I was selling this course, I wouldn't want to come and just grab a picture. I'd need to pick images that weren't copyrighted. Say save picture as, and mountain, snow, JPEG, that's fine. Okay. So I want to import that in. So I'm going to come over here. You should see your Solution Explorer over here. If you don't, I think it's, where's that, under Windows or View? Here it is. View, Other Windows, Solution Explorer. I can never remember where it is, but every once in a while I close mine by accident. Now I'm going to right click on this content here and click Add and Existing Item. And I'm going to click my pictures, and I want to choose mountain snow here. Now the name you see here, if I click this, you should see properties down here. If you don't, right click on mountain snow and choose properties. But the name, it's the beginning of it, should match your asset name. Well, will match your asset name, unless there's something weird about it. So see, mountain snow is what we're going to refer to it. Now I'm going to scoot this over a little bit, and let's take a look at putting that picture on in our game. So I'm going to come up here. This is in right after the public class, and then game 1. Before the public game 1, right after Spritebatch. We're going to type texture 2D. Now it has to be exactly like that, and you notice it filled it in pretty fast. I'm not a fast typer. I just started typing texture, and once your yellow highlighting gets on whichever one you want, just press tab and it'll do that. That'll save you a lot of headaches because everything has to match case-wise, lowercase, uppercase, so forth. Now I want to give this a name. This is the picture we're going to put into our game. It doesn't matter what you call it. I'll call it mountain. Okay. Now I need if I were to put a picture in my living room on the wall, I need a frame around it. Well, that's going to be a rectangle. And so I'll do rectangle. It has to be capital R, all the rest lowercase, so forth. You can call this whatever you want. I'll call it rect mountain. Like that. Okay. Now let's come down here. You see how there's a initialize section? There's a load content section. The load content is where we're going to load that picture in. So I'm going to come at the end of this line right here. These 2 slashes here means this is a comment. It means you can type whatever you want in there. It just kind of documents what you're doing. Now press enter. And I'm going to type mountain equals content dot load less than, and then I'll type in texture 2D, then greater than, beginning parentheses, and then quotes, and then I'll call this mountain snow. Okay, now let's talk about these different items. The mountain you see right here, this has to correspond to the texture 2D name you have up here. Content.load, this is exactly as you see it. It's always content.load. This texture 2D, that's a different color. This type tells us what we're loading in, what particular. We're loading in a 2D picture, basically, texture 2D. And then over here, you see mountain snow. That matches my asset name. So if the asset name here was something different, like it was MS, this would have to be MS. So they have to match. Now, Visual C# is nice in a way. Like if I leave off something. Notice how it puts a little red squiggly underneath there? That means, hey, you screwed up. You left something off. That tells you there's something wrong. So I'll come up here and put that back. Okay, our rectangle. Again, I'll start typing until it gets there, and I just press tab. Recmount.width. Now we're going to want this to be the entire width of our game. So that's going to equal to window dot client bounds dot width. The window refers to the window the game's running in. And the bounds, client bounds, is what it's bound by. Screen dimensions of the game's windows, client rectangle. So you can put your mouse over there, it tells you. And of course, width is width. So this will make the width of the frame the same as the width of the window. Let me do a recmount.height equals to window.clientBounds.height. That'll make it the height of that. And then we want to know where to put it at. So I'll say recmount.x equals 0. And recmountain.y is equal to 0. Let me draw something here. Okay, here's our game window. In algebra, this is my x-axis and this is my y-axis. So this would be x and this is y. This would be 1, 2, 3, and as I go up, this will be 1, 2, 3. Well, if you haven't had any algebra, that's good. It doesn't get you thinking along those lines. These going across here is going to be our x, and going down here is going to be our y. This point right here is the point 0, 0. As the y values go down, they increase. This would be 1, this would be 2, and this would be 3. Now, it's different from algebra. In algebra, as we go down, that's -1, that's -2, and that's -3. And the x values, as it goes over, this would be 1, this would be 2, and this would be 3. So when I'm saying that where that rectangle is going to be, remember our rectangles are framed for our picture, is at 0, 0, that means it's the upper left-hand corner. And if I set the width and height to be those, then that'll go all the way across. Okay, now let's come down here, and this is in our draw section. We're going to have a Spritebatch.begin, and then Spritebatch.draw. Now I can never remember how these go, so when I do a beginning parentheses and the little window pops up, I like that window. That window tells me exactly what to do. And you see the first one says, okay, it should be a texture 2D. And it's okay, I had a mountain. So that should be mountain. Then do a comma, and then it highlights the next one, which says rectangle. Well, then that's my rectangle mountain. Comma, and then color white. And then Spritebatch. Now notice there's two different Sprite batches there, one with a capital S and one with a lowercase s. We want the lowercase s. .end. Now you'll notice sometimes as you type it automatically corrects, and that's good. Why do I want the Spritebatch with lowercase s? If I come up here, it's already declared for you. See how we have Spritebatch here? And notice the lowercase s. That's the name we give it. So it already has that in there for you. It also has a graphics device manager, the graphics. So I'm going to talk about a different way of doing the width and the height other than this in a second. But again, we have our beginner end. All this is exactly the same. The only thing that changes is your draw. You have to have a draw for each picture you want to put in your game. Well, let's run this now. See this little green triangle? Start debugging. Or you can come up here and somewhere debug, start debugging. And Avast thinks it's a suspicious program, so it'll sit there for a little bit. It'll let me run it here in a minute. I just got to mark it that it's okay. You probably don't have this unless you have Avast. Okay, continue execution. And there's our mountain that's taken up our entire screen. Okay. Now remember I said that I'd refer to the graphics device manager here. It meant as graphics. If I come down here, another way of doing the width and the height, and let me comment these out. To comment these out, I just put a / at the beginning of them. That's very important programming wise, because as you're trying to figure out what's going wrong with your program, maybe you want to comment out some code so you don't run it. And let me do rect mountain.width equals graphics device dot and it's viewport dot width, and then rect mountain dot width equals graphics device dot viewport dot height. You can have extra lines. Yeah, there's a space there. That's fine. It doesn't care. Now let's run this. See the difference. Ah, graphics dot maybe it's not viewport. Let me try one other. Dot display mode. Hopefully I can actually remember. This is a display mode. Dot width. And if I can't remember this, we won't even worry about it. Display mode dot height. Oops, I might have been right the first time. I see a problem. Viewport. Sometimes I go back and do a dot just because I don't want to remember how to type it. Width. And here dot viewport dot height. Now this didn't work before when I ran it. I didn't get an error. It just didn't work. Notice over here, I said I got width here and I got width here. This is a programming error. Didn't mean to do it, but I did it. This should be height. Okay. Now let's see if I got the right viewport. Doesn't mean I don't have other problems. So there it is. Okay. This is a good example. Sometimes things don't go wrong, and if you're going into programming, if you find it very frustrating looking for your error, you know, almost painful, yeah, you're in the wrong field. Go somewhere else, because you're going to have lots of errors. You're going to have lots of things to fix. That's a big part of programming. Sometimes I've looked for in programming languages. I've looked for an hour, 2 hours for an error, and the error might be a missing semicolon. Now, C# is nice about this. It does a little red squiggly to show you an error. Other programming languages aren't so nice. Again, if you cannot stand looking for that error, if you find enjoyment in it, it's not enjoyable to get errors necessarily, but if you find it enjoyable to look for errors, then programming may be your where you're headed. You're not going to get it right the first time. Very, very seldom do I actually get it right the first time. Anyway, that's our first picture. Okay. Now I'm going to show you. We're going to load another picture in here. It's going to be one I'll modify. This is paint.net. I'll put a link up for paint.net on mathheals.com. I'm going to do a file and choose open. And I'm going to choose Mr. Magoo here. And up here you'll see a zoom. So you can zoom to make that bigger. And I want this to be a transparent image. If I load this in now, it'll look like a square. Well, we have to pick a particular pink to choose. And you see down here where it says more? I've already went ahead and created this color, but let's say I didn't have that color. I had red or there or something like that. I can come over here in the RGB, the R stands for red, G for green, B for blue. I want this to be 255, 0, and 255. It can't be 254. It has to be 255. Now, I wouldn't make the bold statement that this is true in every game development package, but in 3 of them I've worked with, this particular shade of pink is referred to as your transparency. So this is 255, 0, 255. And now once I got that, I can click less to reduce that. I want to choose the little paint bucket here. So the paint bucket's that one right there. And if I click in this area here, it'll fill all that in. Now I got a little bit here too, so I'll click there. I'm not sure if I like that actually. Let me do a Control Z. I could spend some time to get this better, but I'm not going to. It's not worth the effort. I just want to show the general concept here. Now I need to save this. So I'm going to do a File, Save As. And I want to do a drop down here, and I want to choose PNG. And I already created one there, but let me call this tmagoo.png. The PNG, along with that particular color of pink, will cause that to be transparent. Have to do both of those. So I click Save, and just click OK there. And you can close that if you want. Now let me come over to my game. I'm going to input that image in. I'm going to right click here on the content, choose Add Existing Item. And I want to choose tmagoo. Now if I click that, again my asset name is tmagoo. And you can just leave it that way if you want. Now up here, for the texture 2D, I could have a separate line where I put it on, or I can just do a comma after the mountain and say tmagoo. I'm going to make this one the same name as the actual picture. You don't have to. You could just call this Magoo. Sometimes you may find it easier to give it a more meaningful name, but tmagoo is good. Now I need a rectangle. Well, develop some kind of standard, and I'll say rect tmagoo. There we go. Now down here in our load content, well, I'm going to need to load in that picture. So let's say tmagoo equals content.load, and then texture 2D, and then this will be tmagoo. Now remember, this name right here has to match your asset name. So if my asset name here, when I click here and the properties comes up, if it doesn't match this, I'm going to get an error. Now I need to work with a rectangle. So I'll say rect tmagoo dot x is equal to 0, and rect tmagoo dot y is equal to 0, and rect tmagoo dot width is going to equal to tmagoo dot width, and rect tmagoo dot height is equal to tmagoo dot height. Okay, let's talk about some of these items now. Well, the rect tmagoo 00, that corresponds to the location on the screen. This is right up here. If I wanted someplace different, I could put it at 50-50 if I wanted to. Like that. Now, again, remember the rectangle is our frame that we're putting our picture in, that we're going to hang on the wall, for example. So the width of the rectangle, we say, is the same as the width of the picture. So whatever the picture size is, it'll be the same as that. And the height of the rectangle will be the same as the height of the picture. Okay, so I'll come down here. Now, I'm going to draw my mountain first. Whichever one is drawn first is the one that'll be underneath. The one that's drawn next will be the one that's on top. So I do Spritebatch Draw, and this will be tmagoo. This will be rect tmagoo, and this will be color.white. And let's run this and see what that looks like. Okay, so we have our mountain, we have Mr. Magoo on top of it, and you see Mr. Magoo is transparent. I got the white there, which kind of looks bad. If I were to put the real effort into this, I'd want to tweak that. And sometimes that paint bucket tool in paint.net doesn't work quite like you think. Depends upon if you have different shades of that color. It doesn't. You have to play with it to get it right. Now, instead of the Mr. Magoo being there, let me highlight this. Click Edit Cut. Come up here, press Enter, and then do an Edit Paste. I drew Mr. Magoo first and the mountain second. Now if I run it, the mountain came second, so it's on top of Mr. Magoo. So if you got your two images on there and one doesn't appear to be showing, that could be the reason. Another could be you haven't set your width, height, or X or Y correctly. So I want to put this back down below. I can highlight it and just move it. There we go. They don't have to be lined up, but I like them to be lined up. I'm weird that way. Now if I run it, let me just make sure it's back the way it was. Okay. Now last thing we want to do in this particular game, and I could drop as many images on there as I want. Last thing I want to do is I want to move Mr. Magoo with the arrow keys. I'm going to come up here to the update section. And come down here. And I'm going to say keyboard state. This is what's happening to your keyboard. And I'll give it a name. I'll say KB. That's a name I pick, the KB. Equals keyboard dot get state. What this is going to do is it's going to go off and get whatever state your keyboard's in. What does that mean? Well, have you pushed a key? Have you pushed a button on it? So that's what it's going to get. Well, I'm going to do an if statement here, and I'll talk about that more here in a second. If keyboard dot get or is key down keys dot right, then do a little curly bracket there and a closing curly bracket, and inside those curly brackets I'm going to say rect tmagoo dot x equals rect tmagoo dot x plus 1. Well, let's first see what this does, and then I'm going to explain what the code's doing. It'll make more sense if you see what it's doing. Okay, there's Mr. Magoo. If I press my right arrow key, see how it's moving Mr. Magoo across the screen? So we can get movement that way. Okay. Well, I've talked a little bit about this. This is getting the state of your keyboard. Then this is checking. An if statement would be like, if I'm hungry, I'll go eat at Subway. So that's an if statement. If I'm not hungry, then I won't do it. Well, this if statement is checking to see if this is true. And notice I have parentheses around that. When you got an if statement, you have to have parentheses around the outside. And inside, I'm checking kb.isKeyDown. So what this is doing is checking to see if a key's been pressed down. And when it's checking against is keys. Oops. What did I do there? Keys.right. That's checking to see if you press the right arrow key. If it is, then whatever is inside these curly brackets is going to be run. And you have to have beginning curly bracket, you have to have a closing. If you don't have a closing, you'll have an error. Like if I do that and run it, and it says, okay, you got errors. And it even tells you down here. It says, closing curly bracket expected. Now, it doesn't necessarily know where to put it, but it tells you you're missing one. And if it ever comes up and says you have build errors, would you like to continue to run the last successful build? Always say no. It doesn't do you any good to run the last one you did. Now, this error list down here, I'm going to click the X to close that. And I'll put my little closing curly bracket back. Those curly brackets will drive you nuts trying to find missing ones. Sometimes it's this one's obvious, but sometimes they're really not very obvious. Okay, let me do another if statement here and check to see if key down is the left arrow key. I always, when I put I try to, I shouldn't say always, I try to, when I put a beginning curly bracket, always put a closing curly bracket. Because then you don't leave one off by mistake. And then if that's true, I'm going to move the X position of the rectangle. This is like I'm moving the frame on the wall. Moving it right, I'm moving it left. And when you move the frame, you move the rectangle, it moves the picture also. X minus 1. Okay, so if I run this, if I hold down my right arrow key, see it moves like that. If I hold down my left arrow key, it moves like that. That's kind of slow, isn't it? Well, if you're ever wondering in a 2D game, how do they increase the speed like that? Well, instead of 1 here, put 2. That might not have been enough. We might not see much change. Yeah. See, it moves faster. Now, you don't want to go crazy with that. If you put 20, it's gonna appear like he disappears from one place and reappears in another place. Maybe not. But you won't see the nice smooth flow. Let me change that back to 2 or 3. Let me just put 3. Okay, so I'm going to put another if statement. If kb.isKeyDown, keys dot, and I'm doing keys here. I think you can do buttons too. Buttons dot, and D-pad down, D-pad left, left stick. This may look familiar to those who use Xbox 360 maybe, or even Xbox, I don't know. I got an Xbox 360, but to be honest with you, I think I played it once or twice. Mainly I played my PS3. But if you're programming this to run it on your Xbox, then you'd use that instead of the keyboard. But we're using the keyboard, so keys dot, and then I'm going to do up. Let's see. Close, and then beginning curly bracket, closing curly bracket. Okay, moving up. What in the world does that mean? Remember how your Y values go. If you're going down, these are going to increase. So as you're going up, the Y values are going to decrease. So this is going to say rect magoo.y is equal to rect magoo.y minus 3. Now, I tend myself to type this in each time. You can definitely do an edit copy and edit paste to save some time. The reason why I do this to type it is because it helps cement it in my memory, which isn't that great. If you keep typing it over and over, I guarantee you're going to have it down. Okay, so then this will be rect magoo.y is equal to rect magoo.y plus 3. Okay, let's run this. Okay, I got Mr. Magoo. I'm going to do my right arrow key. I'll do my left arrow key. Do my down. Do my up. Okay, it all looks like it's working. Now I realize you can program any key on your keyboard. If you just come down here and just type keys dot, you see all the different things. You can program the F1, F10, so forth. We'll look at more of this as the semester goes on. But that's how you do movement and transparency and multiple pictures on your particular image. Now let me save this. You can come up here. When you run, it automatically saves it. But if you want to save all, you can click this diskettes with 3, or you do a file, save all. And I'm going to do a file close. Now, okay, I come here, I go to my documents, and this is where the project's stored at. This is where yours will be stored at default unless you change it. So document, Visual Studio 2012, projects, and okay, I'm lying to you. 2010 is where I stored mine at. Projects, and there it is, transparency movement. That's one we just did today. Okay, this folder has a bunch of files in it. So for the particular class, you want to turn in all those files. You don't want to upload each one. I won't accept each one. What we're going to do is we're going to zip this up. First thing I want to do is show you how to turn on your extensions. You might already have this turned on. If you do your Alt key, the ALT, it'll bring up this menu, and we'll choose Tools, choose Folder Options, choose View, and see down here where it says Hide Extensions for Known File Types. Yours is probably checked. It's checked by default. Uncheck that. We want to see our extensions. And then click OK. Okay, now we got transparency movement here. I'm going to right click on this, and I'm going to say send to compressed zip folder. It'll come down here and it'll choose the same name as the folder, which is fine, and you see the .zip on there, and you just press enter. This is the file you'll want to turn in. This has everything in it now. So when I go to grade your project, I just have to unzip this, run it, and see, or load it up in Visual Studio and see what it looks like, and so on. If I double click this, do not double click in here and right click on any of this. Some people come in here and they'll double click on this solution, and you have to, under your projects, right click on this and send it to a compressed zip folder. Now just some things to point out here. If I come here and look at some of these folders, and I don't remember which ones. Debug. Here's one that's an exe. And if I run this, I can actually run this outside of Visual Studio, the exe. Now you do have to have your drawing a blank on going senile. What is it called? Visual Studio. Framework. You do have to have the framework installed. It's free. It's a free download. But if you don't have the framework installed, then you can't run it. But then if you do have that installed, then you can run this outside of the program. You click back here to go. I think those are called your breadcrumbs, something like that. But again, this is zip files, what you want to turn in.